G'day and welcome to another episode of Ian Smissen's Photography. So welcome to Creativity Challenge number 9. Textures. One of my favourite things about eucalypt forests is the variety of textures and patterns you find on the barks of the trees. And possibly my favourite eucalypt is the spotted gum, and it's native to this area. So this morning I've come out to try and find some spots with spotted gums that I can isolate away from the rest of the forest, and I managed to grab this mature tree with beautiful markings around the base of the trunk and some lovely textured foreground with some dead branches and leaves. And the trunk of the tree also has this nice footing with roots exposed that gives it just a little bit of additional intrigue to the shot. The challenge shooting here this morning is going to be the angled sunlight coming through the trees and creating spots of sunlight and highlights on the trunk of the tree. So I'm going to have to be bracketing to make sure that I get the full exposure range, and then merge those either by merging with layers in Photoshop or using the HDR feature in Lightroom later. So I'm going to move around, look for a few shots, and then get back to you and talk through the settings. All right, so here's the first shot, and I hope you can see this properly on the back of the camera. But what I'm trying to shoot here is the tree down this left-hand side, and on about that extra horizontal third, that root of the tree going down the hill. And as you can see by the flashing blinkies, all of that red flashing on and off, all of that bit in the sun is overexposed. So I'm bracketing at 2 stops under through to 2 stops over, and I'll take a test shot on that to see how that works, and I might need to push that down a stop or so because that bark is very bright. I'm also focusing just on the foreground in front of that tree. So if I press the OK button here and slide that focus point down to the bottom, you can see there the leaves and the trunk and root of that tree. And if I just focus in and out there, that's pretty good in terms of focus. I'm on ISO 100, shooting at f11, which will give me enough depth of field from the foreground leaves through to the background, and that gives me a shutter speed of 1/25th of a second. You'll also notice that there is bright sky in the background, and bracketing will also help me bring that out. I'm not too concerned about the blue because I think this shot's going to end up being black and white, but that remains to be seen. But I do want to make sure that I'm not blowing out that sky so it's just not bright white in the background. So here's the first test shot. So that's the shot that's 2 stops over. That's the shot as expected by the camera, and that's the shot that is 2 stops under. The 2 stops under is not bad, except that I really don't like the shadows on that tree trunk. It's just distracting. So I'm going to come back here in 15 or 20 minutes when the sun has moved, and hopefully that trunk will either be fully in shadow or completely in sunshine. I don't mind either one. I can cope with either one, but I can't really cope with that shadow running right across the middle of that shot at the moment. It's just too much of a distraction from the texture and pattern that I'm trying to shoot. So what I'm going to do is to walk around and look for some other trees, some other spotted gums, and take some close-ups of the bark with just the pattern and texture in the bark. So I'll talk you through those when I get to them. So now that I'm hand holding to get close up to these, I could use the tripod, but it's a real pain to try and move the tripod around to exactly the right spot, and hand holding is good enough. I need to change some of the settings on the camera. Firstly, I'm going to switch over to vibration control on the camera. One of the things I really like about the Pentax is that the vibration control is not built into the lenses, it's built into the camera. So I can use that on every lens I've got. The second thing I'm going to have to do is, if I just get a shutter speed here, at ISO 100 f11, this close up on a sort of mid-grey background, I'm shooting at 1/3 of a second. And even with the vibration control on, that's going to be difficult for me to hand hold. So I'm going to bump the ISO up to about 1600. Which gives me a shutter speed of 1/50th of a second. And that's much better. The next thing to do is to work out whether to shoot horizontal or vertical. And the best thing to do is take both. So I'm going to move around and look for some other shots as well, and keep checking on this tree behind me as to when that shadow is going to disappear. It hasn't quite gone yet, so I'm going to keep moving around and take some more shots here. So I've given up on that tree further down the road because as the sun has moved, another shadow has come across the face of that tree as well. So as you can see here, I'm standing in the road, so I'm in a bit of a precarious position. Fortunately, on these country gravel tracks, you can hear vehicles coming. So I'm going to quickly take these shots and then move up the road a bit to see if I can find some more. I'm focusing here. If I just turn to video, I'm focusing here on another trunk of a tree, which fortunately is in complete shade, as well as the foreground, with another little root coming down off the bottom right, and some bark and leaves and things in the foreground. I've tried to frame this so that I don't have too much distracting background. I've moved in quite close. I'm about 4 or 5 meters away, and zooming in means that the tree is quite dominant, which I'm not sure how that's going to go. I'll take a few shots of zooming in and out, or I'll move back a little bit into the middle of the road and keep the zoom at 70 millimeters to try and change the perspective so that I've got more of the tree and less of the background. So one last shot. As you can see here on the video, I'm shooting centered on this large tree in the foreground, balanced by the smaller tree in the background. I'm shooting at f11, so both of those will be in focus. And I'm now just working out the right distance and focal length combination to balance those two trees with the rest of the background. So I'm going to take a few shots here and then head off. So thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this one. If you have, please like, subscribe, click the little bell, share with your friends. And remember, pixels are free, so keep on shooting. So one last shot. Just as I was walking away, I spotted this single green leaf sitting on top of some brown bark. I couldn't resist it. One of the things that you should be looking for when you're out in the field, in addition to texture and pattern and shape and form, is contrast in colour. Having that single green leaf really stands out, and it makes it just a more interesting shot than just the pattern and texture in the bark. That's nice. Okay, bye.